What's up, guys? Welcome back. Today we're going to be reviewing the new Inline 3 from Prime Archery. Lots of cool new features on this bow, or I shouldn't say a lot of cool new features, but they totally redesigned their cam system. So we're going to get into that. We're going to shoot it through the chronograph as usual. I've got pretty much got the same arrows for every review now, so like 511 down to like 360. So big range of weights there. We'll shoot it at 30 and 28 inches. Before we get into that, I wanted to thank everybody first who made purchases during the Black Friday sale. The last 2 weeks we had a lot of orders and we really appreciate all the support. There's still a bunch of product on there, so if you want to go get yourself some Inside Out Precision merch, head over to InsideOutPrecision.com right now and grab yourself some gear. So we'll get into the specs of this bow first. So like I said, this is the Inline 3 from Prime. They have a 1, a 3, and a 5. And so a 31-inch axle to axle, 33-inch, which we're reviewing today, and then a 35-inch axle to axle. I think just because the 33 is kind of right in the middle, that's what I'm going to start with. I personally liked the 5 the best when I shot it, but we'll get into those in later weeks. So the 3 is 33 inches axle to axle, as the name would suggest. Has a 6.5-inch brace height, so pretty forgiving brace height there. IBO's at 337, so pretty much right on par with like almost every other 33, 34-inch bow on the market. Goes from 26 inches all the way out to 30 and a half. Personally, I would have liked to see that draw length extend a little bit. If they could have got it up to 31 or 31 and a half, I would have liked to see that. We get a lot of people who are, 6'2", 6'3", and they need that 31 plus inch draw length. But in that case, they could go with the longer bow. So 26 to 30 and a half inches. What's crazy is you can get this in all the way down to a 30-pound peak weight. So it'll go from 30 to 80 pounds in limb options, which is pretty wild. So I mean, literally a brand new shooter could get this bow in a 40 or 50 pound peak weight, or somebody just doesn't want to pull a lot of weight anymore and shoot this. What they did different this year, if you know anything about Prime in their past, they've always had the dual track cam system, and they completely got rid of that and went with this new inline cam system. So I guess it is a binary cam, but it's not your traditional like 3-track binary cam. And essentially what their whole goal with this cam system was to even out the load on that limb and that cam at full draw. If you go to their website, they actually have a very good little video series on exactly how they achieve that. They have one of the engineers explaining it. But more or less what happens is when you draw this bow, it brings your cables here in line with the main string. So this flex guard flexes in, and then the way that the tracks on the cam work, it actually brings that your cable here in line with the main string, and that evens out the load on that cam, so that reduces cam lean. Now, personally, up to a certain point, cam lean is not that big of a deal in my mind. I mean, almost every bow, like even Matthews, when you use the shims to tune them, the cam lean is, that's essentially what you're doing, is you're changing the load on that cam and the limb, and then that leverages the string in a different direction, thus bringing in, a tail right or left kick. But the more balanced I can get a bow to feel, obviously the less cam lean, I guess, the better. So that was their whole idea behind this, was to get a bow that's extremely well balanced, load-wise at full draw. And it is a very solid feeling bow. It basically looks like the Nexus riser with the new cam system. I don't see a lot of differences in this riser compared to the Nexus riser, same with the limbs, but it is a whole new cam system. And one thing that I, in my opinion, I'm not crazy about, but I think a lot of other people will like, it doesn't have the cable stops anymore. It actually has a limb stop. So this draw stop here is going to come around and actually hit your limb rather than your cables. A lot of people like that. It's a very solid back wall. I mean, there is no sponge in this. Depending on your shooting style, I think that's either a benefit or it can hurt you a little bit. If you're somebody who shoots true back tension and you literally pull through the shot, that super solid back wall is going to have a tendency to kind of want to like pull your front arm around a little bit if there's just absolutely zero give. But if you're a shooter that likes to be a little bit more relaxed at full draw, this bow has 85% let off. You can hit that back wall. This bow doesn't want to go on you. It's got a pretty good valley to it. Not excessive. I mean, it's not one of those bows you feel like you have to push forward, but it definitely has a good valley. Pretty deep valley, and it's just a comfortable bow to shoot. When we first got it in, we were all playing around with it, and all of us were really impressed with how well balanced it is. If you haven't seen my reviews on the Nexus and the Black series, Prime kind of does everything differently. Most bows, the center of the grip here, or the throat of the grip, is actually below the true center of the riser, and the burger hole, or the hole that the rest mounts in, is actually the true center of the riser and the string. Prime puts the grip, like the throat of the grip here, in the true center of the riser. What this does is creates a very balanced feel. I know a lot of people, especially with Matthews in years past, they felt like the bow was a little bit top heavy. This bow does not have that feel. It's got a really low center of gravity. But because of that, because that arrow starts above the true center of the string, that can create knock travel issues. So what they've done is, you'll notice like the top cam is actually considerably larger than the bottom, and that's to account for that knock travel, basically, and the timing of the cams without that string being right in the middle of the, without that arrow being right in the middle of the string. Every bow that I've set up from them, honestly, you get the timing of the cams down, you get that knock 90 degrees to the string, and it's almost always just correcting a right or left tear. There is very little knock travel to this bow. They still have the same grip that they had on the Nexus. I think Prime has probably the most comfortable grip in the industry. I love their grip, and just in general, the fit and finish on these bows is just second to none. I mean, it's top-notch stuff. One thing we noticed shooting this, they are noticeably quieter and noticeably smoother than the Nexus series. There's hardly any vibration here. The dual track cam system was what kind of set them apart from everybody. They were trying to achieve the same thing, a bow that was harder to torque, and had a more even load on the cams. But the downside to that was you had 3 screws holding the modules together, and then another 2 or 3 screws that kind of almost, I won't say they held the cam together, but there were screws that went to both sides of that dual track cam. And what we noticed a lot of the time was, guys would come in and go, man, my bow's making a lot of noise, and we'd start playing around on those screws, and like 3 or 4 of them would be loose. Once you tighten them down a few times, they seem to stay put. But with this, you don't have that dual track cam. You've just got the one cam. There's 2 module screws. So from a technician standpoint, I can change the draw length on this in about half the amount of time that it took me on the Nexus and the Black series, which I really like. So it's a rotating module, just like most binary cams. So you're just going to match the position of your draw module to the draw stop here. One thing I'm not sure if you can do on this that you could do with the Prime, with the other ones, is you could change, like let's say I wanted only like 60 or 65% let off. On the old Primes, you could leave the draw stop in the position it was at. So let's say you were at 29 inches. We'll just say that was the number 4 position on the cam. You could leave the draw stops at number 4 and then move the modules to number 3, which is longer. And what that did is it basically stopped that cam. It would still stop it at 29 inches, but it didn't allow that cam to get fully into the valley because the module was lengthened. And there's a lot of guys that shot, target bows that way. Guys do it with Bowtechs too. With this not having dual stops and it's a limb stop, I don't know if you can do that with this. I need to talk to Prime and play around with that a little bit. I don't want this thing to like lock up on me. But as far as I know, the let off is not really adjustable on this, unless you moved the draw stop shorter, but then you're shortening your draw length. So anyway, I wouldn't mess a whole lot with that. But very cool bow. We haven't sold any yet because we only got these 3 in. They came out on the 16th. And yeah, we've just started playing around with them. Unfortunately, Matthews came out the same day. There's been a lot of attention on the Matthews, but I've been trying to get these in guys' hands who are just looking for a new bow and aren't set, dead set on a new Matthews. And everybody's really liked them. So, like I said, we're gonna do the speed test here. 30 inches, 70 pounds, and then 28 inches and 70 pounds. In the past, Prime has always been pretty efficient. Like that dual track cam system was pretty efficient with heavier arrows. And this bow is almost identical in speed to the V3 X33. So I'm curious to kind of go back and look and compare speeds and just see which one, you know, performs better at those arrow weights, because almost everything else is identical. Same brace height, same axle to axle length. This IBO is 1 foot a second faster, which is nothing. So definitely curious to see what it does there. So I'm gonna go get that chronograph set up, and we're gonna run some arrows through this, and yeah, see what she can do. Okay, so one thing that I did want to mention is how this bow tunes. So it is still a shim kit like they had on the Nexus and the Black Series, but it is a little bit different. And what I mean by that is instead of having the full round like bushing or shim that would go in that you had to remove the axle and then replace, there are actually these little, like, it's really hard to see, but they don't go all the way around. They actually just clip over the axle. So when you're tuning this, you only have to back off, like you'd put it in the press, you know, press it a little bit. You only take like half a turn or 3/4 of a turn out of each bolt in the axle there. And they have this little tool that you put on the shim there, and then you just tap it with like a rubber mallet and it pops off, and then you can replace it with the other one. So you don't have to pull the axle all the way out, which is nice. And they, you know, your pro shop should have this little tool. I know that they sell them, and they actually come with the different size shims. So each bow will come with the different size shim, which I think is really, really nice. With the Black Series, you had to order them. They almost always shot tail right out of the box. So definitely a cool little system there. You know, it's quick, it's easy. You don't have to pull the whole cam off and swap them out. And yeah, just a cool thing. So anyway, got the chronograph set up here. This first arrow, so this is at 30 inches, 70 pounds. This first arrow is a 511 grain FMJ. Big long sucker. So 511. It's got a little bit of a hump at the end, but not bad at all. 269. This is a 480 grain FMJ. If I remember right, the 33 was like 272, so basically the same. Yeah, it's got a little hump right at the back, but that back wall is no joke. Like, you cannot get that thing to budge. 284, so pretty good jump there. This is a 445 grain arrow. And remember, I'm left-handed. This bow is right-handed, so I know I look like an idiot drawing. 296, so that's moving. I think that's faster than what the Matthews shot. I'll have to go back and look. This is a 420 grain arrow, so this, 420 grain arrow that's busted. Well, not gonna shoot that one. All right, so we'll go to the 360 grain arrow. If I had to guess, I would say that would probably be like 305, something like that. So this is 362 grains. 324. So that's moving for sure. You know, I think I've only ever shot one bow that ever actually hit IBO speeds, and that was the PSE a couple of years ago. Okay, so I'm gonna go get this changed to 28 inches. We're gonna run those same arrows and see what she can do. I'm guessing everything's gonna drop by probably 15 feet a second, but we will find out. All right, so we got this set to 28 inches. I know it's hard to tell on camera, but this bow is noticeably quieter than last year. It's a really quiet bow, and it doesn't have any like string dampeners or anything on it. And then I think it's much smoother on the shot too. So anyway, 28 inches, 70 pounds. This is a 511 grain arrow. $258. This is a 480 grain arrow. .270. 445 grain arrow. So this would be a really common weight arrow for somebody shooting this draw length. .276. And now the little burner. This is 362 grains. .301. So hit the 300 mark. So I think this is honestly a really, really sweet shooting bow. I mean, I've always liked the way Prime's shot. I think what people are going to find most impressive about this bow is just the feel of it, and the way, how well balanced it is, how well it holds. Just a really, really well balanced bow. I didn't mention it earlier, but they do have the rear stabilizer mount here too. So if you want to run a back bar off the bottom, you can totally do that. Or you can run one off the front like a lot of people do. They got a lot of different color options in this. You can mix and match between riser and limb, and just a really cool bow overall. As far as I know, they still do their 2-year string replacement. So when you buy the bow and you register it with them, after 2 years, you can go to any Prime dealer, tell them that you want the strings. They can order the strings from Prime, give them the serial number, and Prime will actually give you a new set of strings if you want to keep using their strings. So that's a pretty cool incentive in my book. So get down to your local Prime dealer, guys. Go shoot one of these. Like I said, they make a 1, 3, and a 5. They kind of go backwards. So the 5 actually has the shortest brace height. It has a 6. This has a 6.5, and the 1 has a 7. Most bows go the opposite. The shorter bows have the shorter brace heights. But I'm looking forward to doing the 5 review. I think that's going to be a really popular guy for guys, or popular bow for guys with longer draw lengths. And I've, if you've watched my channel, you know I prefer longer to axle bows. So I really like the 33. I'm sure I'll like the 35 even more. So thanks for watching today, guys. Remember to head on over to InsideOutPrecision.com, grab yourself some merch, and remember, precision is the decision. Keep them in the middle. I'll see you on the range.